On paper, when the MLM2 Pro came out, it seemed like it was going to be a no-brainer for best golf launch monitor under $1,000. It's not only got Doppler radar, it's got 2 cameras to increase accuracy, specifically to get you more accurate spin numbers. It's got simulator capabilities, you can play real courses in the app, like it's got just about anything you could want, and it does it for $699. Asterisks. We'll get back to that in a second. And during my initial review, I talked about how all of those features were great, but it wasn't perfect. There were a lot of users, myself included, were having some pretty major issues that were kind of deal breakers. The Wi-Fi connection was super unreliable, so sometimes it was tough to connect, sometimes it would drop. I specifically had a lot of issues with missed shots where it seemed like every other shot it was missing. And so while on the surface it seemed like the dream budget launch monitor, the reality wasn't quite so rosy. Well, now we're over a year into the life of the MLM2 Pro, and the question is, have they fixed all these things and have they improved on the product? I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Yes, they have done all of those things, and this is the best launch monitor under $1,000. I'm gonna tell you exactly why. So in this video, I'm gonna do more of an update. I'm gonna talk about the things they fixed, the new modes, and my experience with it. I also tested it indoors against a Trackman, and I'm gonna tell you the results of that. But if you wanna know more about the general features and the general overview, I would recommend you go check out my initial review or my written review, which I will link to below. So before we can go any further, for this to be relevant, we have to make sure they fix the bugs, and here's the good news. They did. Rapsodo has clearly invested in the MLM2 Pro. Every month since its release, they have been rolling out new updates to the software, to the firmware. All of those bugs I encountered in the early days have been gone. So if in doing your research, you've been watching earlier reviews that came out more around the time of the initial release, all of those issues, at least in my testing, seem to have been squashed, which I'm really excited about. When it comes to using the MLM2 Pro, it still feels more like a consumer device. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you're looking for. For instance, if you want to jump up a notch in price, you've got the FlightScope Mevo Plus, which really feels like a professional launch monitor. It can be user-friendly, but you can go as in-depth and customized and do just about anything you want with the software. With the Rapsodo software, that's not necessarily true, but it has seen some improvements since I last did a review. One of my biggest complaints was the fact you couldn't use it in landscape mode, and that's been kind of fixed. There are still some modes where you cannot use the Rapsodo MLM2 Pro in landscape mode, and that feels like kind of a bummer. The good news is when you're playing courses and in simulation, you can. So for instance, in the standard practice mode, I could only see those 3 metrics. And if I wanted to see carry distance, spin rate, club head speed, and I wanted to see something else, I would have to go into the menu and I would have to switch the ones that I was showing, and it was just super cumbersome. The good news about this is they have now added a range feature, and the range feature is great. You've got all sorts of targets and you can see all the metrics, you can use it in landscape mode, but I'm not sure why they haven't implemented that in the just regular practice mode. It's a little bit better when you're using your iPad versus your phone, but the fact that I still couldn't just get a metric of all of my statistics all on one screen that I could leave there was kind of odd. Like if I want to get rid of the camera and the video replay and just see the metrics, I can't seem to do that. And that just seems like a little bit of a miss. As I said though, you can go into the range versus just the regular practice mode and you can get those updates. So generally speaking, I think most people are gonna wanna use the range more than the practice mode. One of my favorite modes that I had issues with previously is the combine mode. So here you're going to pick 3 clubs in 3 distances. You're going to hit 2 of each one and you're gonna do that 4 times. So for instance, my target distance might be 100 yards with my gap wedge, then 160 with my 6-iron, and then to have the furthest, most accurate drive that I can. So I'll hit 2 gap wedges, 2 6-irons, 2 drivers, and I'm gonna do that 4 times. And from there, Rapsodo gives me a score based on my performance. I'll get a handicap for each club, and then I'll be able to see my dispersion for all of my shots. My overall handicap it gave me when I did this most recently was an 11, which is pretty much dead on. It also reinforced that I'm a much better golfer when I'm not hitting driver. I was a 3 with my gap wedge, and I think I was a 6 with my 6-iron, and I was an 18 with my driver. So we know what I need to work on. When I was testing that mode last time, it missed like half the shots. So in order to get a number, I had to hit like 50 shots when really I was only supposed to be hitting 24. They have fixed this. I have had 0 issues with it, and I'm so happy because this is not only a fun mode, it's a great way to be able to track your progress as you continue practicing. They've also improved their impact vision camera. So this is their high-speed, super slow-mo camera, so you can see your club making contact with the ball. Before, if you actually wanted to see this camera, you had to go through, hit a bunch of buttons and go through different menus. Now you can see it in just about any mode just by clicking a little icon, which is going to allow you to see that view. The fact remains, I don't think that view is necessarily super helpful, but the fact you can see it is still a pretty cool party trick. But to be clear, the purpose of having that camera isn't so you can see it, it's to give you more accurate spin numbers. When you're inside and you're using Callaway RPT balls, they've got dots all over it to help the camera see the spin rate better. And I've got to say, it is super accurate. We're going to talk about that in just a second. There's two other big improvements they've recently launched. The first is R-Speed, which allows you to get club speed numbers without actually having to hit a ball. So if you're working on speed training or you just don't necessarily have space for a full setup at home and you want to be able to continue to practice your swing and still get useful numbers but not have to have a full simulator setup, this is a great mode for people that need that. The second is R-Cloud, and essentially this allows you to save all your videos, all your statistics, get all of your information saved to the cloud. So whether you're using the Rapsodo in different places or using your phone or an iPad or different devices, it all gets saved to one place. So if you want to go back and be able to review those sessions, you're able to do that. Their implementation of course play is also excellent. So this isn't necessarily quite a full-blown simulator, but it allows you to play just about any course you want in 3D. They've recently made updates to help factor in elevation, which even though it's still currently in beta mode, I found it to work really well. And having all of this included, which you can do on your phone or your iPad, is great. It's a really nice added bonus, and it's a good way to mix up practice if you don't want to do a full-blown simulator. And before we get into talking about accuracy, I want to talk about the one biggest downside to this device. And if you've done your research, you probably know where I'm going with this, and that's the subscription. So all of those features I mentioned, if you want to play those real courses, if you want R-Cloud, if you want R-Speed, if you want the combine mode, if you want to do all of that, you got to pay a subscription. Two things about that. First off, you get your first year free, so that makes it a little bit more palatable. So if you want to buy the product, give it a shot, use all the features, and 6 months in, you're kind of like, you know what, this isn't necessarily for me, cool, go and sell it, and you're probably going to be able to make a good chunk of your money back. The second thing, and even though I hate subscriptions like this, especially subscriptions that are over 25% annually of the actual cost of the device, I mean, these days, the Rapsodo is worth it. I can't believe I'm saying that about a subscription fee that feels really high, but all of the features, all of the modes, the ease of use, the accuracy, it's really good. And it has gotten significantly better since launch, and it continues to get better. They continue to be rolling out features that are really useful for golfers. So before we wrap all this up, let's talk accuracy, because I know that's going to be the biggest question on a lot of people's mind is it accurate? And here's the deal. This week I went and I put it up against a Trackman, and the results were surprising. The results legitimately kind of blew me away. So what I did was I hit 3 shots each from my driver, my 7-iron, and my gap wedge. I wanted to see how it did with mid-irons, how it did with my driver, and how it did with wedges. For this test, which I admit was pretty basic, I looked at 4 key metrics. I looked at carry distance, I looked at side spin, I looked at side carry, and I looked at club speed. Now there were a few issues, but let me just tell you what some of the results look like. So let's start with carry distance with my gap wedge. So shot 1, Rapsodo, 96 yards, Trackman, 95.3. Second shot, 96.5 on the Rapsodo, 95.2 on the Trackman. Third one, 104 on the Rapsodo, 100.7 on the Trackman. So in every case there, the Rapsodo was within plus or minus 3 yards and a percentage difference of less than 3%. For me, when you're looking at a $700 device versus one that costs $20,000, $30,000, that's pretty okay. But let's keep going. Let's look at carry distance on the 7-iron. Shot 1 on the Rapsodo, 138, 138.8 on the Trackman, 148, 148.1 on the Trackman, 142.8 on the Rapsodo, 144 on the Trackman. So with the 7-iron, the results were even closer with a percentage difference of less than 1%. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. I will say with driver, things got a little bit more variable. There was a 7-yard difference on the first one, there was a 6-yard difference on the second one, there was a 9-yard difference on the third one. So especially if you're someone that has higher club head speeds and you're getting into longer clubs, you're probably going to see that difference expand a little bit. Spin rates were also surprisingly accurate. Every single shot I hit was within 1,000 RPMs of the Trackman, and I know that's a pretty wide range, but most of them were within 500 to 600 RPMs. So when I look at that, that's getting me in the ballpark and that's getting me usable data, and this held true whether I was with my gap wedge all the way through driver. The one caveat to this is this was inside using RPT balls, which help measure that spin rate more accurately. If you're using this outside, I would not expect the results to be quite as accurate as what I got here. Club head speed was also pretty much dead on. It had less than a 2 mph difference across every single shot I hit, even up to driver, which I think is pretty impressive. And when it comes to side carry, the results weren't quite on with the Trackman, but it always got the right direction. So if I had a slice, it would recognize a slice. Although I will say I also recently tested the much more expensive SkyTrack Plus, which is like a $3,000 unit against the Trackman, and that lateral data was more accurate on the Rapsodo than it was the SkyTrack. So with my 7-iron, it deviated about 10 to 20 feet. With my gap wedge, it deviated about 5 to 15 feet. And with my driver, as to be expected, you got quite a bit more. The deviation was within about 20 to 70 feet on the Trackman. That was still significantly better than the SkyTrack fared. So for the price, I was super impressed with the accuracy. So when you sum that up, if you're looking at accuracy to price value, the Rapsodo is off the charts. It honestly performed much better against the Trackman across the board than I was expecting it to. So if accuracy is your big concern, I don't think it should be. It's great. So final thoughts on the Rapsodo MLM2PRO as it sits now. This, I will now say, is unequivocally the best launch monitor you can get for under $1,000. The hard part for a lot of people is going to be that $200 subscription fee, but let's put this in perspective. If you go get a Bushnell Launch Pro, for instance, you're gonna be paying $500 a year for that subscription. Granted, that gives you a much more professional setup and the ability to use a gaming PC for higher quality simulation, but the Rapsodo is easier to use and also has a lot of features that doesn't have. If you want a unicore launch monitor, it's gonna be $200 to $400 a year, depending on what features you want with the subscription. So while yes, it's only a $700 device and the subscription is relatively high, with the exception of the Mevo Plus, which amazingly doesn't have any subscription, it's right in line with what you're going to find from other launch monitors. The SkyTrack Plus is going to be at least a $130 a year subscription, upwards to $250 if you want the simulator bundle. So while yes, $200 is quite a bit of money, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this without it, the big reason that this is so special is because of a lot of those features. I do believe that if you use this on a regular basis, you will get far more than $200 a year worth of value out of it. If you have any questions about the Rapsodo or any other launch monitor, drop them below. And if you're still not sure which one is right for you, go take our 30-second quiz. You're gonna answer a few questions about what you're looking for, and I will give you my best recommendation for the device that is the best fit for your needs. My name is Sean Ogle. I'm the founder of this thing here at Breaking 80, and if you're trying to figure out what to watch next, I would go take a look at this right here. It is our best launch monitors video that I've just recently updated. So if you want to get an idea of the full gamut of what's out there from super cheap to super expensive, that's gonna be a great place to do it. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.